We can look to our own government's failed attempts at filtering porn out of their workplaces. In just 30 minutes of researching online, I found several cases where government workers were busted for wasting taxpayers' money viewing porn online at work for an alarming amount of hours each week. Some of these government employees have been charged with being involved in child pornography rings. If this isn't reason enough to pass this law, I can only wonder how many of these judges are involved in some of these same practices. I'll read you some of the cases that I did find. October 2004, Adam Vaughn, a 34-year-old patrolman who joined the force after 12 years in the Marine Corps. Last spring, he and 88 others were arrested in a child pornography dragnet called Operation Candyman, named after one of 3 Yahoo groups that had been the focus of an FBI investigation. People in these groups, the Bureau reported, were members of an international ring of pedophiles and predators devoted to trading and propagating pornographic images of children over the internet. Vaughn's arrest sent shockwaves through the town of Madison, a closely knit bedroom community for the nearby city of Huntsville. This was a surprise to us, Madison Chief of Police Dan Buskin told reporters. Adam Vaughn was well-liked, trusted, and respected by his peers. Overnight, Vaughn changed from a beloved neighborhood cop into a pariah. In late March, Vaughn's hard drive and scanner were taken to the FBI's Computer Analysis and Response Team lab in Huntsville. An agent there found traces of more than 300 sexually explicit images of minors on Vaughn's hard drive, from teens to young children, all the way down to diapers, as the agent later testified. Of these, 60 were in Vaughn's temporary browser cache, and 230 had been downloaded and then deleted. In April 2006, Homeland Security Deputy Press Secretary Brian Doyle was charged in an internet underage sexting and resigned. The Department of Homeland Security official was arrested Tuesday night on charges of using his computer to seduce a child after he allegedly struck up a sexually explicit conversation with a detective posing as a 14-year-old girl, authorities said. Brian J. Doyle, 55, is charged with 7 counts of use of a computer to seduce a child and 16 counts of transmission of harmful material to a minor because he was sending explicit pictures. On March 12, Doyle contacted a Polk County computer crimes detective who was posing online as a 14-year-old girl and initiated a sexually explicit conversation with her. Doyle knew that the girl was 14 years old, and he told her who he was and that he worked for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, according to a statement from the sheriff's office. Judge said that Doyle, in the first conversation, told the undercover detective his job with the department and started immediately into pretty vulgar language. He explained in graphic detail the sexual acts he wanted to perform with this 14-year-old girl. We found his communication still on his computer with our undercover detective when we went to his home to arrest him. Had we not been posing as a 14-year-old, Brian Doyle would have been grooming someone, some young lady, some minor, for a sexual encounter. May 2006, more than 2,200 Oregon, this is a really good one, more than 2,200 Oregon taxpayers' identities were stolen by keylogging Trojan horse that infected a state PC after an Oregon Department of Revenue worker browsed porn sites, officials admitted this week. Although the worker's PC was infected in early January after he had spent several hours on work time reviewing pornographic websites, the keylogger went undetected until May 15, when an audit of its hard drive was conducted after the employee was again caught downloading and examining pornography during work hours and was fired. Then it was discovered that the keylogger was patiently collecting all taxpayer ID data and transmitting it across the net to the person who had installed it, and that had been doing so for at least 4 or 5 months since it was first installed and before it was stopped. September 2006, the Inspector General released a report about government workers' porn use at workplace computers, where they conducted a limited scope investigation on the DOI. Over a one-week period in 2006, 443 employees accessed sexually explicit sites. Over the past 7 years, only 112 employees have been disciplined for this activity. Reported discipline actions averaged 25 per year over the past 7 years among 8 bureaus. The low number of disciplinary actions reportedly taken against employees who had violated department and bureau internet acceptable use policies compared to the thousands of hits we found indicating user activity at inappropriate sites suggests the employees are not being held accountable for non-work related and inappropriate use of the internet. The Inspector General's conclusion was, current department, bureau, and regional efforts to prevent, deter, and detect internet access to inappropriate websites are inconsistent and must be improved. Despite software filtering programs, training, and policies, computer users are still able to exploit the lack of consistency in department controls over internet use to access prohibited material. This misuse results in lost productivity, exposes department to legal liability, degrades system resources, and compromises system integrity. October 2007, two former NASA employees were recently indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of possession of child pornography on government computers. January 2008, Mayor Adrian Fenty, who this week fired 9 city employees after they were caught watching a whole lot of porn on their work computers. NBC4 reports that each of the fired employees had at least 20,000 hits on pornography. I just can't hardly even talk about this. I mean, it just freaks me out so bad. That each fired employee had at least 20,000 hits on pornographic websites in 2007 alone, with one racking up more than 48,000 hits. Now, these are guys looking at this at work, on our government computers that we as taxpayers are paying for. 32 other city employees with fewer numbers of internet porn hits are facing lesser disciplinary action, such as a 2-week suspension. The actions came as a result of an internal investigation led by the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. The fired employees came from 4 different agencies: the Office of Property Management, the Office of Contracting and Procurement, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Child and Family Services Agency. I mean, really. This is the second round of firings Fenty has announced this month, the first being 6 employees, all from the Child and Family Services Agency. These are people that work in our Family and Child Services Agency and are looking at porn at work. January 2008. Unless you're someone that works from home, I'm not sure how an employee could muster up the audacity to watch porn at work. But someone did, and that someone is 9 D.C. government employees who were fired when their inappropriate work habits were uncovered. Tipped off by another employee, the government agency found that the employees looked at porn an average of about 200 times per workday last year. An internal investigation came up with some mind-boggling results. I think these are all mind-boggling. Each of the 9 employees dabbled in virtual nudity more than 19,000 times last year, each one of them. 3 perused these sites over 39,000 times apiece last year, and then 32 other employees visited sites over 2,000 times, but will retain their jobs because they're just dabbling a little. May 2008. Yesterday, Ira Waltrip, an employee for Iraqi and U.S. government contractor KBR, was formally charged with possession of child pornography. According to a court affidavit, Waltrip was first caught with pornographic materials in 2006 and fired from KBR. However, KBR rehired him before the year ended, and he returned to Baghdad, where he returned to his past behavior. Last month, while working as a KBR bus driver in Baghdad, Waltrip, 48, was again discovered with suspected child pornography, including some pictures of prepubescent children engaged in sex with adults, and some pictures of Waltrip himself with nude females who appeared to be young teenagers. Today in the U.S. District Court in Austin, where Waltrip has been charged with child pornography, U.S. Magistrate Judge Robert Pittman